So really briefly, this is probably what you're looking at right now. We're just going to start with starting and stopping your video. So those people who are not speaking, if you could please turn off your video, and then also this is how you mute and unmute. So once we open up the Q&A portion, we'll go into there. And then in addition, if you are arriving, if you could please make sure you're muted so that way everyone else can hear the presentation, we'd really appreciate that. Step 2, to raise your hand. So if you've got any questions during the Q&A portion, we encourage you to raise your hand so that way we can all hear everyone's questions and hear the answers to those questions. The first step is to press the reaction button in the center of your screen with a little smiley face and the plus. And then the little raise hand, and that'll notify me that you have a question to ask, and then I'll ask you to unmute. And once I do so, please feel free to unmute as you've seen before, and then we'll continue on. Finally, if you have a question during the presentation and want to make sure you don't forget it, feel free to put it in the chat. And to do that, you just press the little chat button in the middle of the screen, as you can see there, and then put your message, just like a text message, over in the right-hand side of your screen. That's my portion of the presentation for tonight until a little bit later. In the meantime, I'm going to pass this on to Eric Campbell, who is all things rates at SCV, and I'm excited to see what he has to say tonight.
Thank you, Tara. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Campbell, and I am the Chief Financial and Administrative Officer for the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency. My staff and I have prepared this presentation tonight regarding the proposed changes to the water rates. As Tara mentioned, at the end of the presentation, we'll have a session for your questions and comments. If we are unable to answer any of your questions when asked, we will post a response on the rate case planning webpage as quickly as we can. Next slide, please. So here is a high-level outline of what I'm going to go through tonight. And essentially, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process that the staff has gone through to develop the rate proposal, the primary objectives of the proposed rate action, the proposed rate action and how the increase in revenues will be spent, and a bit of a discussion about our customer outreach plan. Next slide, please. So as most of you know, the Santa Clarita Valley used to have 3 retail water providers, and as a result of the merger, there is now a single provider. The agency wants to charge all of its retail customers the same rates. Currently, each of the former retail water providers, they're now divisions within the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency, they have their own rates. Essentially, the Newhall division has the highest rates, the Valencia division has the lowest rates, and the Santa Clarita division rates are in between the two. Getting to a single set of rates is a key objective of this rate case, and the staff has developed several scenarios of getting to a single rate, but without the input of the ratepayer advocate and the assistance of our legal team, we would not have come up with the final recommendation that is included in the public hearing notice and that we're going to go through this evening. Next slide, please. So by now, all of you should have received in the mail a notice of public hearing for the proposed rate case public hearing on June 15th. On June 15th, you will be provided the opportunity to provide public comment prior to a decision by the board. The board of directors of the agency will make a decision on the rates at that meeting. Next slide, please. So the proposed rate action is covering a 5-year period. In year 1, the rate action that will take place is proposed to shift all customers to the same set of rates. While this will have an impact on your bill, overall, the first year of the plan does not include a component of raising revenues for the agency. Years 2 through 5 do have revenue increase proposals. The actual amount of your bill it'll increase in those years will be dependent on how much water you use. So essentially, what you'll see here shortly is beyond the idea of charging all of our customers a similar set of rates throughout the service area. There's a couple of elements. One is the PFAS treatment costs. I'll get into that in just a moment, as well as just some of the rising costs. You'll see more about this in just a moment. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. So there's a process that we follow in order to figure out just how much revenues does the agency need, and how should we best charge that to equitably charge our customers based on the cost of service. And then finally, how do we develop rates to minimize the customer impact? So that was the process we went through to get to this rate proposal that we're about to get into here. Go to the next slide, please. Where does your money go? This is an important question for people to understand. And what I've done here is laid out some broad categories of how the money gets spent. As far as operation and maintenance expenses, those include things like labor and materials for main repairs, service connections, and equipment rentals. For administration costs, those are things including staff labor, legal fees, professional services, liability, property, flood, and earthquake insurance, technology needs, and other things like uniforms and safety. Our debt service is the principal and interest payments that we make on an annual basis to repay the bonds that we have issued in order to finance our large capital projects. We have a category here, 14% of the revenue goes towards pay-go capital, which is a method of collecting revenues today to spend on capital projects. That serves as a way to reduce the amount of debt that we're issuing and try to find a balance between charging today's customers and tomorrow's customers for the infrastructure that's needed. We also have a fairly large component for water resources, and as we'll see shortly, PFAS operation and maintenance, which is a new component, but it still is it's now a large component of our costs of operation. Let's go to the next slide. So as I mentioned a couple slides ago, the first year of the rate plan is what we were calling revenue neutral to the agency. We're not seeking a rate or a revenue increase during that year. And the reason for that is the significance of the impact on customer bills. Just to get to a unified rate system is to put anything else on there to increase our revenues would have been too hard, too steep, or too quick of a increase on our customers' bills. So in that first year, there is no additional revenue that is proposed for the agency. However, in years 2, 3, 4, and 5, over that 5-year period, the sum total of the additional revenue that would be generated under this proposed plan is almost $26 million. It's a lot of money, but the majority of that, almost 80% of that, is going towards a brand new cost to the agency, which is the PFAS operations and maintenance. That is, PFAS is a chemical component that is in our water supply that has recently been, I guess, discovered, found, and we are going to treat that. We're spending quite a bit of money on capital to build the treatment plants. And once those plants are all up and running, the annual maintenance cost on that will be significant. So this is our way of getting to that, the ability to fund this. The remainder, $5 million of the proposed revenue that we are seeking, $2 million of that will go towards additional water resources, water banking programs, and the balance will go to other operations and maintenance costs, which largely are just centered around a couple of new staff that are planned to be added over the next 5 years. And other than that, some just general expected cost increases to materials and supplies. Let's go to the next slide, please. So here's where we want to talk a little bit about the structure of the bills and a little bit of modifications to how the bills are presented. Currently, you have a fixed charge and a water use charge on your bill. But with this proposal, we are looking to divide that one fixed charge into two components: a fixed service charge and a fixed legacy debt charge. Both of those, all those cost elements are currently in each of the bills that you're all paying right now, but we are going to split those out because one of the components of the merger was to ensure that none of the other divisions are paying for the legacy debt of another division. The water use charge is the same. It's the fee per that goes towards our cost of service based on the amount of water that you consume. Next slide, please. So the fixed charges, I mentioned, will be broken down into a fixed service charge, which will go towards capital projects, transmission, distribution, meters and service, operation and maintenance costs. And then we have the second component of the fixed charge, a legacy debt charge. Those fixed charges are based on meter connection size, and the standard meter connection size for most single family homes in the valley here is 3/4 inch meters. And that's important as we get to later. We'll look at some of the rate tables and you'll be able to see the 3/4 inch meter charge, which is what you will most of you on this call will be subject to. Next slide, please. The water usage charge, as I mentioned a moment ago, is based on the amount of water that you consume. The standard unit is a CCF, a cubic 100 feet, which equals to 748 gallons. If you look carefully at the slide on the bottom left, there's a man standing there, and behind him is a tank that actually holds 748 gallons of water. And as you'll see shortly, the amount that we will be charging is a little over $2 per 748 gallons. And that's important just to keep in perspective when you think of the, put it in the comparison. If you were to buy water at the store, you use the vending machines to fill your jugs up, you're paying about 40 cents a gallon, which turns out to about $300 for a 748 gallon quantity. So you get for $2 what you would pay for equivalent to the store, $300. Anyways, the costs that we're collecting on there goes largely towards the cost of water treatment, and electricity. Let's go to the next slide. So here's the schedule of the proposed water charge for potable water. That is the drinking water that you all get into your homes. And what you're looking at here is a table that shows each of the 5 years of the rate plan and the proposed cost per unit of water. So effective July 1 of this year, the charge would be $2.09. The following July, it would go up to $2.22 would be the new charge per unit of water. The next year, it would go to $2.37. Fourth year, $2.52. And then the fifth and final year, the proposed rate would be $2.68. So that is the way that you would read a table like this. So you could see during the 5-year period, the charge for a unit of water would go from $2.09 to $2.68. Next slide, please. These are the proposed fixed service charges. And as I mentioned earlier, the standard single family residential meter connection size is 3/4 inch, which is the second row at the top of this table. And the way to read this is effective July 1st of 2021. Everybody would be paying, that has a 3/4 inch meter, would be paying $18.38 per month. The following year, it would go up to $19.58 per month, and so on out to the fifth year, where the cost per month would be $23.65. So just to be clear, the path on this proposed rate plan would have your 3/4 inch meter connection monthly fixed service charge go from $18.38 in the first year up to $23.65 in the fifth year. Let's go to the next slide. So there's also a private fire service charge that majority of you certainly will not be impacted by, but part of the rate case is to update these numbers and make them accurate. We have a total of about 1,400 private fire service meters. If you're curious about what those, if you have one, you know it. If you're not sure, then you don't have one. One of the things you'll see is as you look around, maybe when you're shopping and you're at one of the big box stores along the outside walls of the buildings, you'll see red pipes, water pipes. And there's a little picture in that box just above the page number that shows an example of the color of the pipe that is most common in the businesses. And there's, like I said, there's about 1,400 of those in the entire service area. Next slide, please. Recycled water is also having its rates updated. Currently, we have basically just the city golf course, some medians, and in the near future, some homeowner associations will be getting potable or recycled water service. Not many people have that right now, but this was also part of the rate plan to update those to reflect our cost of service. Let's go to the next slide. Here we go. A second to catch up. Okay, so here we are with the examples, illustrative examples of bill impact for each of the service areas. And I'd just like, this is also in your notice of public hearing. And I wanted to spend a minute to talk you through this and explain it to make sure that you all have a pretty clear understanding of what we are trying to communicate here. So on the far left of this, you'll see the divisions. Newhall's NWD, Santa Clarita Water Division is next, and Valencia Water Division is the green box. For each of those divisions, we're showing the most common meter connection sizes, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, and 2 inch. We're also showing the average monthly usage across our service area. So for 3/4 inch service connections, the average monthly use is 18 billing units. And what we're showing here is going out in the further columns is the annual bill impacts by division for that level of consumption for those meter connection sizes. So in the first year, this is the year where we're just working on shifting everybody to the same rate. So as I mentioned earlier, Newhall currently has the highest rates. So what they would be seeing is a decrease in their monthly bill of $11.24 if they use 18 units of water in a month and they're a 3/4 inch connection. Whereas the Santa Clarita Division would see a 2-cent decrease in their monthly bill if they use that same amount of water compared to their current bills. And the Valencia customers would see a $3.99 increase in their bills. And this is exactly why we did not ask for any additional revenue in that first year, because it is just enough already with the increase there on that first year. It's going to be hard enough the amount of increase to the Valencia customers having the lowest rates, getting them up to par with the rest of the service area. But what you'll then see is the remainder of the rate plan. Each of the annual increases are identical. So in year 2 of the rate plan, 3/4 inch Newhall customers will see a $3.57 a month increase. So will the Santa Clarita Water Division and the Valencia Water Division, because they're all on the same rates after the first year. What you're seeing at the very end of this table is the 5-year total impact. So for Newhall, for example, that first year where they have a $11.24 bill decrease, the rest of the 5 years there's increases, and the net sum of those is $4.50 over a 5-year period that their monthly bill would go up. On the other extreme, the Valencia customers would experience a $19.73 per month bill increase. And the reason for that is their bills were, like I said, on the lowest side. So they didn't have a decrease that first year. They had nearly a $4 increase that just carries forward to match the rest of the years matched up. But that is they have the most significant change over that same time period. So one more time, just to be clear, the first year of this proposed rate plan is to get everybody in our service area on the same set of rates. And as you saw earlier, the balance of the years, what we're attempting to do is collect enough revenue to keep up with the expected general increases in operating and maintenance costs. Plus, the big driver is the PFAS costs, which are roughly 80% of the requested revenue action that we're seeking. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Tara Bravo, and she will, and the others will go through the customer outreach, and I believe we'll also hear from the ratepayer advocate.
Thank you so much, Eric. So one of the really core components of this particular rates outreach effort was to ensure that everyone was informed, and also that everyone has resources to further educate themselves on what is proposed. So one of the things that we did, of course, is the legal requirement, which is send out the public hearing notice, which we tried to make eye-catching so people really noticed it. And then in addition, we created a dedicated web page with a bunch of resources for you to find out more information. This video is going to be posted there as well, but it also includes the cost of service study and a bill estimator, in addition to the frequently asked questions. So it's a resource that's very specifically dedicated to ensuring customers understand what's happening. And there's also the opportunity to fill out a form with any questions you might have, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So when I talk about frequently asked questions, there's a lot of questions that everyone has about rates. This is just a list of some of the ones that we know are likely to occur and that we hope we've answered either tonight or through the public hearing notice. But this information is also available online in easily digestible, easily understood format. So things like, if I use less water, will I pay less? Do you have any say in the rate making process and what that looks like? So you can absolutely protest. Protesting must be done in written format in order for it to be considered legal by California Proposition 218. So we want to make sure that we follow that guideline, and that's one of the things that is both in the public hearing notice and online. So bill estimator, one of the things we really encourage you to do is not just see how bill impacts generally. We'd love it if you took a look and saw how the bills these proposed changes might impact you specifically. And to do that, we encourage you to go look at the bill estimator, which is at yourscvwater.com/rate planning. So it's on here. I'm going to say it again at the end, but that yourscvwater.com/rate planning is really important to sort of remember and hopefully find your way back to. It's also in the public hearing notice a few times. And to use the bill estimator, you'll select your division, you'll select your meter size, you'll select the rate's effective date. So so you can see this year to next year, this year to 2 years from now, what you can see in 5 years. And under monthly consumption, you'll look at your bill, you'll see your consumption number, which is in CCF. And that's that 748 gallons that we were talking about earlier. And then you'll review the table. That's what it looks like. It's a real screenshot. So it's pretty easy to understand what it looks like and what it does to your bills. And then finally, I'm going to introduce Ichigo, who is the ratepayer advocate. She's a third party who's overlooked the rates, and I'll let her explain a little bit more about herself.
Hi, I'm Ichiko Kido, the ratepayer advocate. I've done my very best to address your concerns throughout the process of development of the rates. I'm available to answer your questions via the agency's website. If you'd like to send me an email, the information will be shared on the next slide. I'm also happy to answer your questions today during the Q&A session in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ichigo. And with that, we're already in Q&A time, and we already have our first question from Chris, who wants to know how you know what division you're in. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that we can all see all of our, so if Eric, you want to come back on, you want to see. All right, so how can somebody tell what division they're in? So I'm new, I've just moved here. I'm in Santa Clarita, New Hall.
Well, I'm about to find out too. We've gone through, part of this merger is we have gone through the effort of trying to streamline definitely our billing process. Their bill will have a notice on there. It'll be labeled whether they were a former Newhall, Santa Clarita, or Valencia.
There is also a
if there's still if that isn't, yeah, I was going to say, if there isn't a if it's not clear on the bill itself, there's certainly a customer phone number that they can call, and there's only one number. It's for all of the divisions, so we are unified in that aspect already.
And if you go to yourscvwater.com, there's also this handy map. So it's under your water agency water division, and then you can go right to this map. You can either sort of guesstimate by where you live, or you can enter it specifically by address, and it will tell you exactly what division you're in. So you can just search here, enter your address, and you'll find out. Is there any other questions, hand raises, chat things? I haven't seen any other questions kind of coming in. You're welcome to raise your hand, and then we'll get into the go ahead and unmute free for all, but I'd love to sort of start with hand raising if possible. Remember that it's a reaction and then raising your hand, just like that. All right, so anyone else have questions?
Hey, Tara.
Yeah.
I know we talked about possibly doing this in the meeting, and that would be to get a quick show of different emojis or reactions for whether someone is a residential or a non-residential commercial customer, so we have an idea of who's attended and what their interests are.
So let's go ahead and do that poll. So if you, since there aren't any questions at this moment in time to sort of hopefully maybe generate some questions, if you are a homeowner, then please do the applause reaction, which is right here. So if you're a homeowner, there we go. If you're a business owner, party hat or party, whatever that is. I don't know what that is, but it's a party. And then if you're some sort of institutional or government employee, the heart, we really appreciate you. You do a lot. All right, we got one homeowner and 2 government agency workers. That was kind of all the participation we received. Oh, wait, I got another homeowner. You're a homeowner, Matt.
Well, I think
Now we got 5.
early on, Tara, we did get some homeowners, and maybe I can ask anybody that's staff, including myself this time, to not react, and we'll try it one more time so we knew who are the true public here.
Okay, no staff reactions, 0 staff. All right, and let's let it all die out, One last die out. I'll get to your question in just a minute. We're going to finish this poll. Okay, now if you are a homeowner, hand clap, business party hat. All right, I got you. We have 8 homeowners.
Okay, thanks for that, Tara. Now it looks like you might have a question.
I believe I have a question from Dave G. You're on mute, I believe, or something. Although it says you're not on mute, but I cannot hear you. Can you mime? I'm open to other suggestions.
Okay. Dave, we'd love to hear you. If that won't work, you could also type your question into the chat box.
Into the chat box.
Definitely want to try to get your question.
So it's down in the bottom center. It says chat. Do you see the chat button? Are you working on an iPad?
No, poco participantes. Nomás 8.
I don't see it. Kathleen suggested you move your mouse, and maybe it's hidden. Your thumbs up, you got it? Small? It's 2 words. No, 3 words. 5 words? No, 1 word. Oh. Maybe you could, typing? Type, oh, you're typing it. Oh, he's got it. He's typing his question. Yay! I win at charades. All right. Any other questions while Dave is typing his question? Everyone is capable of unmuting, so don't feel like you're stuck. We're so ready for the questions. Oh, not about rates, but what about existing water treatment? So do you want to know, and I'm just going to ask you some questions and you can nod your head. When you're talking about existing water treatment, do you want to know about how the water is currently treated? Do you want to know about what we're doing to protect against PFAS? Okay, I'm trying here. Okay, I'm waiting, that's fine. Nobody else is running with questions, so. I appreciate you having the patience to stick this out with us. Existing treatment. So existing treatment. All right, I'm gonna type to you. 1 sec, Barry. We're trying to work with Dave on his question, but we will for sure get to yours. So when you say existing treatment and you want to know more about it, is it just that you want to understand, like, is it, and if anyone else has any idea on how to answer this question, I'm more than open to it, but is it about like the fact that we use chlorine to treat it and ensure that it's safe to drink and that we treat it using, do you get what I'm saying, Matt? I think he's got
Yeah,
that.
Tara, let me take a shot. And again, because the questions, I want to make sure we cover it, so I may give a broad answer. In terms of how we treat water, primarily what we do, first I'll cover water that we import into the service area. That would be coming through the State Water Project system, through Castaic Lake, and then into our service area. We have 2 large surface, what they call surface water filtration plants, one up near the lake and one right above Central Park. They each use conventional dual media filtration, followed by ozonation, and then they have a small amount of residual chlorine that's added to keep the water sanitary as it goes out through the distribution system. That's kind of that piece. If the question was about groundwater, we do have a few wells that historically we've had contamination detected at, some with perchlorate, and we have a treatment facility over near the Lowe's. You see it as you're leaving In and Out with your burger after your long wait there. You look over that fence next to the creek, and you'll see some vessels there, and that is our Saugus treatment facility, which treats water from a couple of wells and removes the perchlorate using a customized media that attracts the perchlorate and basically takes it out of the water. We also have, as we mentioned at the beginning, a newer contaminant that's another man-made chemical, our family of chemicals, called PFAS. And we've completed our first treatment plant, which is over by the ball fields behind I believe it's the Mercedes dealership there. And we call it the N Wells treatment plant. That again uses a similar approach. It uses vessels that remove the chemical by attracting it onto a media that you run the water through. So we have a series of additional ones we'll be building. The wells that are impacted, if they're above a certain level, we've taken them offline. So one of the key drivers in this rate case is to recognize that we're going to be incurring additional costs to add that treatment to our system. We will also be looking for grants and other types of funding opportunities to the extent we can. And we also have a lawsuit we filed against the primary manufacturers of those chemicals, which may or may not net us some kind of recovery, down the line, but that will take a number of years. And in the meantime, we want to return these wells to service and make sure they're serving high quality water. So that's a capsule summary of, I think, all of our treatment. Whoops, hit the wrong button there.
So, Barry, hi, you are
Hi.
in Newhall,
Okay,
so you have that change up. So I just want to, so it's
so they're going down.
for the first year, and
Uh-huh.
then the second year, I still think it's a reduction to today's bills. And then I'm going to pull up the slide so you can see the impacts.
Yeah, like I said, I just moved here, just opened my mailbox and saw it, and so it's today, so super late, but
Welcome to the party.
yeah. But I don't like anybody's bills getting higher, so
So this is the rate changes. So just to kind of give you an example, so Newhall is going down by $11.24 a month the first year.
mhm.
And then the second year, it will match everyone's increase, but that's still not as much as it is today. So it's still a negative to that. So you see how over the course of 5 years, it is a total increase of $4.50 to your monthly bill. And that's to pay for PFAS treatment, which I know you weren't here for, so I'm just kind of going to go over it really quickly with you, but that's to pay for PFAS treatment primarily. And then additionally, the idea that, everything that the district pays for also goes up. So there's that piece as well. The first year is a swing because the district is trying to get everyone on the same rates. So it's really important to they feel like it's really important to make sure that everyone is paying the exact same amount.
So yeah, that's not that big of a deal. What matters, I think, most is the per usage, the variable rates based on how much water I use.
Yeah,
So-
this is the overall impact to your bill. If you use 18 CCF, which is average, in a 34 in a 3
Oh,
foot
like one,
home.
yeah.
So that's the average impact total. And
So
you're
you're
more
saying
than welcome to go on the bill online to the bill estimator as well and do your actual bill.
I've told you I just moved here. I don't even have a bill yet. So
18 is average for the area. So they looked at every single bill and went, what's the average? And the average is 18 across the service area per month. We'll get back
you're
to you,
saying
Dave. I promise.
like 4 months.
What? What was
So
that?
based on this, it would.
Oh, you're breaking up. Did he stick for you?
Like,
Sorry, based on
your PowerPoint right here,
Mhm.
if I use an average monthly of 18, my bill would be $4.50.
No. This is the change.
Yeah,
This-
I mean, fine. It would increase by $4.50.
5 years from now.
Oh, 5 years from now. Okay.
Yeah, the first year it would actually go down by $11.24.
So basically, use as much water as I can.
Whatever decision you make with
Gotta buy a pool.
conservation is your
Yeah.
decision.
I got you. I read between the lines. Got to buy a pool. Olympic. It's gonna be cheap this year to fill up. I got it.
So, and if you would like to, you did ask about protesting. So if you would like to protest the rate changes, you're more than welcome to. And you would just do that. It's in that thing you got on exactly how, but you would mail in your protest with just your name, your parcel or address, and then I believe it's the reason, the rate you're protesting.
Sure. And then last question is,
Yeah.
what happens if we all protest? Like if everyone protests, then what are you guys gonna do?
So if more than 50% of the entire service area protests, then the rates will not pass. If less than 50% of the area protests, then the board members will vote to either pass the rates or not pass the rates. Then it becomes the board's decision.
So yeah, if it doesn't pass, then what? Then what's the,
Then
obviously,
there would have to be a lot of decisions made on whether or not PFAS treatment was implemented, or if the wells closed, or if water was more scarce. There'd be a lot of decisions to make in that, and I can't predict what that would look like. Matt, do you want to try?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would depend on the nature of the protests and whether there was an identified preferred approach or something that was driving that degree of protest. At that point, the board could consider making a modified proposal and starting the process over again with that. But I think Tara's right. I mean, it will depend on what is the uptake. If we were to get a majority protest, obviously we would be paying attention to that and wanting to put a proposal out that could get broader support from the community, and that's partly why we're trying to do the outreach. There are requirements to do a notice, and some agencies will just mail out a postcard and be done with it, and have the hearing. I think we're trying to do a little more to explain what's behind them, because there are a couple of kind of unique situations. One is trying to get our rates aligned from 3 different entities, and you have historically the Newhall customers were probably paying more because their board had a policy of trying to quickly retire their outstanding debt and pay that down more quickly. And so that's one of the reasons your rate's going down. But just to be clear, it's going down to the same rate that the Valencia or Santa Clarita ratepayers will be paying. So the rates are kind of converging in the middle, if you will. The other driver is, as we said, we've had this contaminant that is newly regulated and newly detectable in our system, and we've removed those impacted wells from service about 2 years ago, and have tried to move forward with treatment to restore those wells to service, and that treatment costs money, unfortunately. Um, as I mentioned, we will be looking for whatever grant funding we can get, and we have started a process to try to recover costs from the manufacturers of these chemicals. But in the interim, and probably even ultimately, some of this will be coming out of our pockets from the community.
And another thing is this presentation is being recorded, so it will go online. So if you want to watch the entire presentation from start to finish, we are encouraging you to do so. And there's a form there. If you have additional questions, you can enter those questions and ask the ratepayer advocate for any additional information you might need. So we're really trying to make sure that you have all the opportunity to be as educated as possible.
By the way, Barry, welcome to the community.
Yeah. Hi.
Glad you moved here.
Cool. I'm liking it here.
Good. It's likable. All
So do
right.
you guys
Oh,
work for you guys work for the water company, or who? I
Matt is
don't.
the general manager.
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
sorry.
water.
I probably didn't introduce myself earlier. I am the general manager for the agency, and we do have a number of our staff on the Zoom to be able to help both hear the questions so they understand what the community's sentiments are, and to potentially be helpful on particular technical questions. So we've got some of our finance staff and our public communication staff here as well. And we do have, I think, a couple of board members who are watching as well.
And then just so you know, Barry, Kathleen Wilson, who's the customer service manager, is going to be reaching out to you directly to answer any additional questions you have to make sure that you're welcome to the community and that you know what's going on. We want to keep you informed.
Yeah, I just saw something on Facebook a couple days ago about this, so that's why I wanted to jump in and figure out what it is. But yeah, I appreciate. I'll look at your slide deck and see. Yeah, I'd like to learn more about since I live here now. So thank
Good,
you.
glad. You should learn more. All right, Dave had one more question. We distill tap water at home and the residue is awful. Residue from rainwater is much better after distilling, yet not perfect. Any thoughts?
Yeah, the mineral content of our water varies by source, and that is, I know that a number of people in the community prefer softened water and use commercial softener equipment. And yes, there is scale when some of our water evaporates, particularly some of the wells in aquifers that have a lot of natural mineral content.
All right, and then Chris asked, who pays for water line build out for new structures?
Okay, I think I can field that. Um, Depending on the nature of the line, if it's the line that's in the actual tract, the developer typically builds those, pays for them, and then when they're completed to a standard that we set, they dedicate them, and we basically take over ownership, but they've been paid for by the developer. Larger regional lines are extended generally by the agency, but we charge a facility capacity fee on all new homes, which goes to pay for the capacity in those newer lines that is calculated to be there to serve new development. Sometimes those lines are also um, serving a dual role where they may be making up for a shortfall from prior development before we charge capacity fees. In that case, they would be paid for by general property tax revenue from the community. So we typically split those by some ratio and then assign the development related costs to our capacity fee that's collected from developers. So for example, I think this year we've collected thus far about $10 million in facility capacity fees from new homes.
And then Rick Drew had a question.
Hey, Matt, have we ever determined the source of the PFAS?
It is, because of the nature of it in having been used in many, many products, everything from carpeting to pizza boxes to, waterproofing on boots and tents and things like that. Um, it's not as easy, uh, but we do have one of the uses that's been identified nationally is firefighting foams. And so I kind of mentioned that we have an effort to try to recover some costs from manufacturers. And we're in a national, what's called a multi-district litigation with water, local community water systems, basically trying to recover some costs from um, the key manufacturers of those chemicals that were used in firefighting foam. So that's an example. There may be other sources right in the community. They're going to be difficult to identify because essentially this chemical is so prevalent that it's at low levels just about everywhere. We don't have super hot spots like some of the manufacturing centers that we've looked at in the Midwest and East Coast would have. So, or even some of the sites that you see around military bases where they've used a tremendous amount of firefighting foam. Our levels are over the California preferred health limits, and those wells again we've taken offline, but they are not even an order of magnitude close to some of these primary manufacturing communities that, for example, the movie that came out about it, that community had levels that were, hundreds of times higher. So we're not sure that we have a smoking gun. We may have a bunch of smoldering guns, or it could be just from historic, use throughout the community. So I'm trying to leave some leeway there because I think there's more work to be done to look at that. And as we get more data and more trending on the monitoring we're doing, that there may be more things that come out. Also, the state has ordered a number of potential sources such as landfills, metal plating, and others to do additional sampling, and that stuff is still pending. They've got deadlines in the next couple of years to produce those samples and records.
There hasn't been any evidence of any of it coming off of Burmite, has there?
I would just say right now it's unresolved. So that's probably my best answer.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. As you know, we have a couple of legal proceedings pending with them. So
Yes, I know.
Right, any other additional questions? Okay, I see no hands raised. So Chris asked, pH level at his house is 9. Shouldn't it be below that?
yeah, we would probably want to get our water quality staff to interact with Chris on that question, so that we have a better idea of where it's being measured, whether there's any devices in between the service and where it's being measured, etc.
So Chris, if you could private chat either your address or your account number so that I could have our customer service manager reach out and schedule that kind of connection, I'd be happy to coordinate that.
Yeah, and we do get, occasionally we get inquiries about all kinds of different water quality related questions, and we try to run them to ground so that, I encourage people, if they see something unusual, to note it, because if we get a couple of calls in the same area, that may alert us to a problem. And otherwise, it may be we can answer the question. You know, one of the frequent ones is, for example, air bubbles in the water where it looks milky, and that could be disturbing, but it's essentially entrained air from pumping the water out of the ground, and it's benign. But that's an example of one where we can pretty quickly help the customer determine what's going on and hopefully put them at ease.
Any other? Barry asked, do we do free water testing? I let him know about the water quality report, and I'm about to show everyone where that is. But beyond the free water quality testing, I'd love to make sure we get an answer. Too late, Barry. I asked for you.
Thank you.
That's a good question. I think it's typically situational. We don't normally do it as a matter of course, but I will tell you that we test the water extensively throughout the system. We run literally thousands of samples a year in our system, and we have under the regulations for monitoring system water quality, you have to identify points throughout your distribution system that you sample on a regular basis, and if anything comes up in those, you have to resample as well. So there is monitoring that takes place typically at the customer side. The only thing we sometimes sample for is occasionally we have to do what's called a lead and copper survey, and we'll identify again a random set of service locations to take those samples, and those are now taken in the home under state law or federal law, and that's just to make sure that there's not an issue with lead or copper in the system or in the customer home.
Okay. And then Chris asked, is there any maximum pressure allowed at your house?
Yeah. Typically, and I'm probably going to get this slightly wrong, but I'll give it a try. The plumbing code does have recommended maximum pressures to protect the devices in your home. And for many homes, if the street pressure is higher than that, what you'll see is a pressure regulating valve that's installed right at some point where the water comes into your home. Oftentimes, if your water is entering at the garage, you'll see it right there or right on the side of the house. And it kind of looks like a little bronze bell shaped thing. If you Google a pressure regulator online, you'll probably see what that looks like. I will note that that's a pretty frequent issue where customers don't realize that their pressure regulator is failing, and they either start incurring low pressure, or it generally doesn't fail in this mode. But if it does fail in that mode, they may incur higher pressure in their home, and that's one of the most frequent kind of FAQ type things that comes up. The regulator itself is the responsibility of the customer. Our service ends pretty much at the meter, but frequently when there's a call and the customer doesn't know what's going on, our person may be able to help them pinpoint that that's the issue and they need to call a plumber. And I didn't say what that number was, did I? I think the plumbing code is 80, but it might actually be 60, and I apologize for not having it at the tip of my tongue. And also the pressure in the street can typically vary from probably as low as 40 to 50 to as high as 120, 150. Generally, not too many places are going to be above that, but that's why that pressure regulator valve is important.
Chris just responded with pressure provided by the water company.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Tara?
Pressure provided by the water company.
Was that a question? Or were you
He was just
my answer?
commenting like on what you were saying.
Yes. So when I say pressure in the street, that is the pressure provided by the pipes. So because we're in a hilly community, depending on where your home sits relative to the water tank that you're served by, your pressure may be higher or lower, but it'll typically be within a range of about 40 to 100, and sometimes a little more than 100 psi. When it's over the UPC recommended pressure, that pressure regulating valve on your home helps to regulate the pressure so that it's not excessive inside your home.
It says my pressure from the water company in my house is 150 to 175.
Yeah, you must live at the very bottom of the pressure zone, so the tank is several hundred feet above your home vertically. And if that's the pressure inside the home, you definitely need a pressure regulator. If it's outside, and sometimes people have their sprinkler systems hooked up and they don't have any pressure regulation on it, we would recommend considering adding a pressure regulator ahead of your sprinkler system too, so that you have fewer blowouts, or that if you do have a leak, it's not supercharged by that pressure.
Right, I think Chris did not add anything, so I think we're good there for now. Chris, we are going to reach out to you. I did pass on that information, so we'll definitely be reaching out to you to double check your water quality. You can also learn more in section 13.1.3 on the customer service policy section of the website. And Kathleen will again reach out to you to make sure you know where to find that. But you can absolutely enter that into the search bar and you should be able to find that. The customer service policy, just a reminder. In the meantime, before we all take off for the day, I wanted to show you a couple different places on the website. So first, this is where you can find out more about water quality at SCV Water. So you can find the different water quality reports. Here's where we report at the sort of at the source where your water comes from, how it gets to you, and then the required information so that you know what's been done and how many samples, those kinds of things. And then again, this is your water table. So how much of every constituent in the water that is sent to your home, what that looks like. And that's all online and it goes back a lot of years. So feel free to explore that. And it's just under your SCV water and then water quality. And you can find it right at the front here, water quality reports. So there's that piece. The other one I wanted to show you was the rate case planning page. This is where you'll find that additional information. So you'll find the public hearing notice here, the ratepayer advocate report. So this is Ichigo's report on her review of the rate case, and then the community meetings, which you already know about.
Hey,
And
Tara,
then
you might want to click on the calculator too. You kind of rolled past that.
and there's the rate, the bill estimator. Sorry, it was behind the black bar. I have the black bar of people.
We'll find out how fast your connection really is.
I'm really straining it right now. But still, I have pretty good internet here.
Yeah.
So this is where you can enter in your division, your meter size, the effective date. So if I want to go here and I'm super average, and you can see what your average bill looks like.
Tara, you might want to click where can I find my meter size? That will show the bill. And also people can find the division up here. Yeah.
Right there.
This is a great opportunity to thank Ishiko and her firm for helping us to putting this calculator together. It's really a nice tool.
Thank you.
And then this is where you would find, so this is like also where you would find your consumption. So see that usage.
Yeah.
So this person used 15.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Dave, we can.
All right.
You
I have nothing to ask except there's going to be a rerun tomorrow.
There is at 10 a.m. So if you want to see more of us, we'll be there.
Nothing personal.
No offense, Dave. All right. Well, I'm glad we had a lot of questions tonight answered. So, Barry, welcome to the neighborhood.
I've been here for a while.
Thanks, Dave. I'm just glad we could get you finally.
I've lived through the water so far, but I know my days must be numbered. Fix it quick.
I think you're doing just fine.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're good, Chris. We're going to be calling the number on the account, so that way we know we get to someone, but that way we're not just calling people randomly. So any other questions, thoughts, comments? All right. Have a great night. I'll see any of you who want to see me tomorrow at 10.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye all.
Thank you all.